Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the Seaman, and I want to welcome you to another edition of the Seaman's Cinema Sit Down. And ooh, is it a good time to be a horror fan, man? It's almost like we're back in 2022, and that's not to say that 2023 was a bad year for horror. I actually think we got some exceptional horror films in 2023. There were just slightly more downs in the horror realm than 2022, which was an unreal year to be alive as a horror fan, and 2024 is off to that kind of a start. The movies that are coming out in the horror realm this year are just hitting so hard, whether it's a classic slasher or, one of those, campy kind of 80s vibe horror murder movies, or just things that make you so uncomfortable, specifically in the possession and the religious horror realm. And those are two realms that, while I like those realms quite a bit, it feels like the things that made you like those realms back in the day kind of slipped away, and we get things that I think just build to unnatural type places, right? Like with where we start in a lot of specifically religious horror films, but possession films too. Like you start with this unnerving, creepy feeling, and then you build to this wild third act. And what's dope is we have had 3 movies in that realm, 1 in the possession realm, 2 in the religious horror realm, but all 3 of them buck against that trend. They all find a lane and stay in it and never let the movie get to a place where it doesn't feel tangible or realistic to what's been built before it. And this one, oh man, there are things burned into my brain that I'll never be able to unsee. And that's not a bad thing, because this movie did everything I was hoping for. What are we talking about? Why don't you pull up a chair? Take a seat. We are getting ready to dive in, spoiler free, into the First Omen. And yes, look, the First Omen is going to naturally get comparisons to Immaculate, because Immaculate also just came out, and both movies deal with young female nuns and some sort of version of bringing about the Antichrist. And what's so great for me is, like I said, this is a realm that I dig. I think a lot of the imagery that you get specifically in the religious horror realm is beautiful, but also haunting and terrifying at times. But so many of those movies will start in that kind of unnerving, unsettling, like, oh, I don't like where we're going, and then get to a place where, when you're dealing, at least for me as someone, who's, a Christian and has, grown up with religious ties, when you're dealing with the opposite of all the good that comes with religion, and when you're dealing with whether it's the bad things inside of the church or things directly tied to Satan, like, that stuff should always make you uncomfortable. And so many of these movies go to this wild third act, like, let's just blow everybody away with this crazy set piece, and you go, fine, but doesn't feel like it's in the same tangible location as where you started. And that's the thing I love so much about Immaculate and the First Omen, is that neither one of those movies do that. They are very tangible, and they're not there to make you jump out of your seat. They are there to get under your skin, unnerve, unsettle, leave people walking out the theaters going, I am uncomfortable. And if you're a horror fan, that's a great thing. I walked out of the movie in both instances grin ear to ear. You know what I mean? Because these were movies that I always want, but I never feel like I get. And Arkasha Stevenson, talk about a directorial debut. And I'm a fan of Arkasha Stevenson. She comes from the TV world, and one of the last things that she had done that I watched was Brand New Cherry Flavor, which starred Rosa Salazar. And that was the kind of show that, like, told me when Stevenson had gotten the First Omen, she could be up to the task, even though it was her feature directorial debut. And she 100% was up to the task. Like, the vibes and the unsettling things that are built in Brand New Cherry Flavor, while that one's a little bit more crazy, same thing. It stays within itself. And she certainly brought the unnerving and the creepy and the unsettling to the First Omen. But the thing that I love, I think, the most with what she brought to the First Omen is the fact that this really does function perfectly as a prequel to the original Omen. And it's not just the story, but it's the style. Like, it's shot in a square aspect ratio. You're not using the whole, screen. You're building sets and vibes and sequences and characters that reflect or feel like they mesh perfectly with the original. And then, like I said, all the unsettling feelings you get, it's pitch perfect for what you're looking for if you were going to look for an Omen prequel. And again, it's one of these things, like, a lot of times prequels I don't feel like are necessary. Like, I didn't need a prequel to the Omen, but now that I have one, I'm very, very glad we do. And it feels like a piece of story that I've probably needed earlier in my life. I love how she just builds this thing perfectly into that original movie. And the imagery is phenomenal. The camera work. I mean, we've seen like some of the images, in trailers and stuff, but there's this one shot in particular that definitely has been going around on the promotional circuit where our lead, Sister Margaret, played by Nell Tiger, is standing in a room and there are candles above and below her, but because of the way the ones above her have dripped down and are glowing, it looks like she's in the jaws of a creature. That's the type of imagery where you get things like that and you just look at it and you go, that's gorgeous, but it is so unsettling and like it's hinting to really bad things that are coming. And that's one of the other things I really dig from Stevenson here is she knows how to dial things up. I think we get a nice introduction to Sister Margaret being brought into this church by a priest that, she grew up with. It's one of these where she was an orphan, grew up in a church, and the head priest of that church eventually came over to be, I think, like a bishop or a cardinal at a church in Italy. And he brings Sister Margaret there to work in the orphanage, being that she came from one, kind of like one of them give backs. So you get a really nice start of feeling the layout of the grounds, getting to meet the sisters. There's a moment where the sisters are just kind of having lunch outside, or not even having lunch. They're just kind of chilling at a park, like, bench table, and the kids are out. It's like playtime or whatever, and just the conversation that the nuns are having, like, they're funny, they're a little dirty, and it was like you just kind of get the vibe, like, you dig this group, you understand why Nell is trusting her roommate, is a lot of fun, and maybe brings her to some things that you're like, questionable friend activity, but she ultimately is there for her. And you get this really nice intro that then slowly starts to get creepier and creepier, and you start to realize there are things going on that you're not entirely sure about. And a lot of that has to do with Ralph Ineson's character, which, talk about pitch perfect casting for Father Brennan. But like, it's one of these where once he gets introduced, you kind of start to dial up that, oh, there's something going on here. The church is trying to do something, and we're going to try to figure it out. And the movie kind of shifts into kind of a detective case, like you're trying to solve this mystery. And I love all of those elements. And while that's there, you are just starting to dial up the evil things that are happening and the imagery and there's no jump scares for me in this movie, and I saw it got a C, I think, on like the where they poll the audience as they're coming out, the cinema score, I think. And I wasn't shocked, because I think a lot of people would go into this movie, specifically with the trailers, expecting to jump out of their seat. And that's not what this movie ever really is doing. But there is some really scary sequences and imagery where you're just like, and I mentioned how there are some things burned into my brain, and there are two. There's one that comes about the halfway, right as things are starting to kind of dial up for Sister Margaret, and things are starting to spiral. And then the end, like, oh man, never gonna forget those. But that's the thing, like, the build to that ending is so natural, and every step gets above the one before it, but never gets too far out of itself. And I think, Stevenson has really nice pacing here. She has a phenomenal score that comes to us from Mark Korven. Like, you just that'd be like when you put on your hair is going to stand up on end and you are going to get creeped out. And how the score vibes with the imagery and what we're watching happen on screen, like it builds tension wonderfully. It gets you to the edge of your seat. It makes you squirm. It makes you really fear what's coming next. I loved Korven's score, and like I said, cinematographer Aaron Morton just captures the imagery of this movie perfectly. And all of those things on their own would be enough. But then there's Nell Tiger Free. Holy crow, man. Like, once again, you want to go comparatively to Immaculate, powerhouse lead performance that doesn't always seem like a powerhouse performance. You know, Free is very subtle, and the way that she moves, and specifically the way that she starts to spiral out as things build in the movie. There is one scene toward the end of the film where she is, I believe, getting out of a cab. The commitment. And I don't know if that was all Nell Tiger Free in the moment, if that was something that she worked on with Stevenson, but that sequence, like, if you watch this movie and weren't impressed with Nell Tiger Free, that moment toward the end of the movie, good God, dude, like, unreal performance stuff, and one of the most terrifying things in the whole movie. Like, that's the thing where, like I said, it's a slow build and it's a lot of unnerving, creepy imagery, but it's not anything that like really, really scares you. In that moment, oh, it hits. And that's the thing, like, there's so much subtlety to what she's doing on screen, and much like Sweeney, the horror that she is experiencing is actually like in turn pushing off and terrifying you. Like, what she has to go through is just wild. And then, like I said, Ralph Ineson was pitch perfect casting as Father Brennan. A wonderful pair with him and Nell Tiger Free. They also have Tawfiq Barham, who plays Father Gabriel, kind of in that mix. I loved everything that was going on with them. Like I said, when you're kind of getting into this like mystery vibe, I really, really dug that. And then you have Maria Caballero, who plays Sister Luz. That's Sister Margaret's roommate. A lot of fun. And there's one scene in particular with the two of them that is fun, but ends in a way, and this is where it was like the cinematography in this movie was so good, the imagery. Like, there's a shot where Sister Margaret's just getting up from going out the night before with Luz, and she's hurting. But the way she's in bed and her hair, it kind of, I think we've seen it in the trailer, it kind of spirals into something that gives like a spider web vibe. So creepy, and there's a lot of spider imagery in the movie. But yeah, like, you don't get that imagery without being able to have some fun with Luz. And I really liked what Caballero brought, man. Like, she's got layers to the character, and as those are revealed as you go through, there were some really cool things in there. And then Charles Dance pops up as Father Harris. He's right at the beginning. Love Charles Dance. Thought he was used well. And again, is one of those moments where you're talking about a really, really strong open. And I love what you got from him. He has one shot in particular. And again, like, this is a movie where you could just take stills and like throw them up, and they're either terrifying or they're gorgeous. And there's one with Dance where I was like, oh, what's coming is going to be fun. Sonia Braga, who plays Sister Silva, she's kind of like our main sister. She's great. Very much functions the way you would want a character like that to function, where you don't really know if you can trust her or not. And how they just play with all that stuff is wonderful. And then Bill Nighy, who plays Cardinal Lawrence, that's the priest that was at the church orphanage that Sister Margaret grew up at, brings her over to Rome, and he's fantastic. I mean, I love Nighy. He never really misses ever for me. And they utilize him perfectly. Like, when he gets moments, absolutely nails them. And yeah, man, everything here just was pitch perfect, as they say. Why don't we get the Seat Maniacs up and give this one a score? Unbelievable directorial debut from Arkasha Stevenson. It was a good weekend for that. And there's another movie that we'll be talking about that was a directorial debut. That was dope. But this is just, if you're looking for this type of religious horror, everything you want is here from Stevenson. I love what she builds in the story, how it connects to the original Omen, functions perfectly as a prequel, both in story and in imagery. And the imagery we get, it is gorgeous at times, terrifying at times, and sometimes it's both. But everything here is just set up to unnerve and unsettle you. And Nell Tiger Free's just powerhouse lead performance carries this thing perfectly to the point where, like, if nothing else, what you get from her and Stevenson is success. But then the rest of the cast is great. The score is, oh, it's so good. And the cinematography is just wonderful. Great pacing. It's a slow, methodical, cerebral kind of religious horror movie, and those are my favorite, and it never leaves that and just leaves you with things that you'll be thinking about and never be able to unsee. And as a horror fan, it's exactly what I was hoping for. I'm going 4 out of 5. See Maniacs. The First Omen was great. So excited for Arkasha Stevenson's career, as I am for Nell Tiger Free. That these two women really are the strength and the lead of this film, and what we get from both of them is phenomenal. I love The First Omen. The question is, what about you? Where do you land in the realm of religious horror? And if you are a fan of those types of movies, did you see Immaculate? What'd you think of that? Did you see The First Omen? What did you think of that? And if you saw both, is it hard to figure out which one works more? I mean, brilliant opens, very, very strong closes, phenomenal performances, great direction. Like, it's one of these things where we don't get these movies too often, and we got 2 in less than a month that absolutely hit. Did they hit for you? If you had one that you like more, which one would it be? Which one would you maybe watch more if you don't want to pick one that you like more? What was working, though, specifically in The First Omen for you? Did you like the imagery? Were there things that you were not ready for? I mean, it is graphic. It's not necessarily always terribly gory, although there is some in there, but certainly graphic by nature. So did that throw you off? Anything you got, good, bad, indifferent on The First Omen, put it down below in the comments section. Look forward to talking to you down there. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you're new, you want to come hang out with the C-Man anytime we're talking movies, TV, trailer, reactions, there's another movie with a directorial debut that we're going to be talking about, Monkey Man. You want to be here for that? We got the Joker 2 trailer reaction on the way at some point today. So if you dig those things, you just dig the vibe, you want to show a little love and support to the old C-Man, well, come join C-Maniac Nation. It's super easy. Jump over there, hit that subscribe button, hit that little bell if you want those alerts, and until next time, for the C-Man's Cinema Sit Down, I've been the C-Man. I'm signing off. Peace. Hey, what's up, C-Maniac Nation? Winter Ken here, where we grow out our roots and our beard, letting you know that you can see some new C-Man videos right up here and right down here. And if you want all those videos and show that man a little love and support, come join C-Maniac Nation right over there, and the C-Man will catch you on the next one.